So this morning you were moderating one of the panels which is on state-by-state regulation. Some quite heated debates between California and Iowa and Delaware going on. What do you think were the most important things to take away from that panel this morning?
Well, I think they identified that there are several challenges with the idea of two markets coming together. I don't like to call it state to state because it really is market to market, and there can be tribes and states and other international jurisdictions. And I think the panel, as regulators, identified that things like licensing are going to become a critical issue. Things like the collection of taxes, accounting for revenue, dispute resolution, technical standards. Those are all elements that are going to have to be tackled before two states can actually join forces.
Yeah, I think that was one of the points AG raised. I think he said it was a question of finding how states can pull together in a compact in a way that's beneficial to both parties. And one of the things that I found particularly interesting was you were talking about how the barriers and the ways around the barriers can be communicated to the consumers. Do you think that's being gone around in the right way at the moment, or?
Well, I think what's interesting about ring-fenced markets is they don't become very interesting after 12 months of operation. Once you've annualized your business and you've acquired and penetrated a good portion of the market, everyone's going to look external and determine how they can grow. And that's why the notion of a federal framework has been debated, obviously, but an important one, because if you can use a federal framework as a basis to get people to work together, you may be able to solve many of the bigger issues and let the states individually deal with their more critical issues, their small issues that they want to tackle themselves. And I think you heard that coming out of the Danish gaming board, who was appearing on the panel with us, where she's identifying that it was a vibrant market in Europe until they started putting ring-fence markets up. And in the United States, despite the fact that we should learn from those mistakes, we seem to be headed down that path, and that would be unfortunate for the industry, but I presume that that's going to be one of the outcomes of how the business evolves in the States.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, they're learning from the Europeans. We obviously, as well as Gigsy, we organise EIG in Barcelona in October. Do you think it's important for the American businesses to be looking to Europe to learn from Europe, or is it more a case of looking to the land-based operations? There were some very interesting points this morning about how the land-based operations, the casinos, etc., are benefiting from online. Is it a mixture of the two, or is it more one than the other?
Well, I would have a strongly held view that no one should look at the U.S. land-based businesses as a great example of how to carve public policy. It's a patchwork quilt. It's very expensive. It's very cumbersome. And most people suffer up and down the value chain, from a customer to the manufacturers of the technology to the operators. There are many things that can be improved in that area. So using that as the basis for how to proceed in online would be, I think, a huge mistake. A second huge mistake would be for the U.S. online entrepreneurs to avoid or ignore what's happened in Europe. I think there are significant learnings that can be derived from what's happened in Europe. And unfortunately, people get too mired in their own interests to not pay attention to what would be great decisions that maybe have a negative consequence in the near term, but in the longer term have very big benefit. And my concern always has been that if the small interest, if the narrow interest become too great, then we're going to have a fractured market, and we won't achieve a lot of what the industry has as its promise.
And do you think events like Gigsy, like ICE in London, like EIG in Barcelona, are they the right places for these Americans, these Europeans, and people from different American states? Is it a place for them to meet and have these discussions, or is there perhaps a different way of getting around it?
I think they are the right kind of venues. My only suggestion, and I tried to hint to this in the moderating today, is that we've moved beyond speculation now. We've moved into the realm of there will be operations occurring in the near term. And so some of these debates need to move off the theoretical and move into actual work. We need to get people in the same room, really debating these narrow issues and coming to a conclusion. And it's one possibility that it comes in the form of legislation. Another possibility is that we get to the issues of how to combine markets, what will be necessary, and not talk about it in the theoretical sense.
And finally, do you think enough states are currently equipped to begin pursuing regulation, or is there a lot more learning that needs to go in place first?
I think there's a fair amount of learning still to happen. I think that Nevada will soon be taking its first wagers, will likely reveal some shortcomings of what we created in Nevada, and others will benefit from that. It's possible that maybe in some areas we were too restrictive, in other areas we might have been not restrictive enough, and I think that will be revealed once wagers begin in the states. But I think many states are starting to go through that process of exercising knowledge and bringing the right people, and the Europeans have been very generous, and I think there's been a free flow of ideas of how to do things. So I think many states will tackle that challenge in the ensuing months.
Sure. Sorry, just one last final question. Are there a lot of eyes on New Jersey at the moment, and a lot of people trying to learn from New Jersey?
Well, New Jersey hasn't done anything yet other than pass their law.
Yeah.
So I think once the regulatory framework is revealed and looking at how it differs and how it complements what Nevada created, I think that will be the next round of discussion of whether those two came out with widely diverse solutions for their regulatory frameworks or whether they're actually fairly close together. My hope is that on the major issues they're very tightly connected. At least that gives us some hope that the jurisdictions might come together.
Yeah, sure.
If they take a path far afield from what Nevada chose, then it's going to reveal that these states are going to be very hard to put together. So I think that's a wait and see. It's going to take them some time to get to getting those regulations posted.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. I really
You bet.
appreciate it. Thanks.